Councilmember Cosarelli?
Here.
Kennedy?
Here.
Councilmember Longo is not attending. Councilmember Nicole?
Here.
Councilmember Robel? Councilmember Strumelob Burke will not be attending. And Mayor Kimball?
Here. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sunshine notice.
Notice of the meeting has been given to the press and the public in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Law.
Approval minutes.
Make a motion.
No, not at this time, Mayor.
Okay, special action.
Mayor, this is the time for the public hearing on the municipal budget amendment for 2015. The amendment was approved by the governing body on September 27, 2015, was advertised in full as required by law on September 21, 2015, together with the notice of hearing of this time. Printed copies have been made available to the public. A supply is here for anyone desiring a copy.
We don't have to call the clerk again, right?
No.
Anyone who has not secured a copy of the budget amendment may now do so. Before opening this hearing, I wish to outline the procedure. Each person desiring to be heard will rise and give his or her name and address before speaking. I will recognize one speaker at a time in order of those rising as nearly as I can determine. I address all questions to the chair. Where necessary, they will refer to individual members of the governing body or municipal officers. Questions must be confined solely to the municipal budget amendment. School or county matters are not proper subject of this hearing and cannot be discussed or answered here tonight. I now declare open the public hearing on the municipal budget amendment for 2015. Mr. Frantantoni.
I'd like some clarification in the,
Mr. Frantantoni, I can hear you.
I'd like some clarification in the advertisement budget in the Star Ledger. It said the local municipal budget was approved the 28th day of July, 2015. And what you gave us tonight said it was approved at a special meeting of September 17th. Which date is correct? These are both your legal ads.
July 28th, I think, was the introduction of the budget. September 17th was the adoption of the budget amendment.
This is the Star Ledger of this past Monday, the 23rd.
Okay, Mr. Frantantoni, if you want to declare it illegal, fine, but we're saying it's legal. You want to ask questions on the amendments to the budget?
I'm just asking. So the auditor says it was approved on, what, July 28th?
The budget was approved on July 28th. And the amendment was adopted on September 17th.
All right, now this meeting is to amend the budget, correct?
Correct.
All right. So first of all, I'd like to thank you very much for vindicating me. I've been telling you for years, you can introduce a budget back in February, the mandated date, and you can do it.
Mr. Frantantoni, I don't want to lecture. If you have questions on the amendment, we'll be glad to answer.
Yes. But you can amend it, so thank you for doing it. Let's go down the list. The first one, going from 0 to 14,385, the Older Americans Act. What is this?
It's a grant
From
from the
federal
county of
or
Essex.
state?
The grant from the county of Essex for $14,385. So there's a revenue for $14,385, and later on the amendment, you'll see an offsetting appropriation for the same amount of money.
All right. When did we know about this grant?
We got notified, to my knowledge, subsequent to the introduction of the budget. It was after July 28th.
Okay, we're notified it. Thank you. Now, also on the another special item of revenue, with the consent of the Director of Local Government Services, it's line 3 under miscellaneous revenue, section G, an additional uniform construction fees. It says additional fees went from $550,000 to $700,000. That's a lot of money in a short period of time. Where's that $150,000 extra? Specifically, what additional fees?
We got a certification from the construction code official that year-to-date collection was in excess of $1 million. So therefore, we increased our anticipated revenues by $150,000.
The year-to-date construction fees
Collected, and exceed $1 million
as of
as of September 9th, 10th.
September 9th? Well, why does it only show 700,000?
Because there's, on another line item in the budget, which is prior to the amendment, there's $486,500 anticipated. So between the two of them, there's over $1 million anticipated.
Well, this says it's from 550,000.
From 550 to 700,000.
Right.
That's additional.
So where's the $1 million? Show.
$1 million, like I said, if you look on page 5 of the introduced budget, we'll see $486,500 for the construction code. When you want to anticipate monies in excess of what you realized the prior year, you have to put it on sheet 10 and get permission from the division. That's why we started off with 550, but when we went to do the amendment, the construction code official indicated to us that he had collected in excess of $1 million, so we increased the 550 to 700.
Okay, so the $1 million will be on sheet 10?
No, 700,000 is on sheet 10.
Well, the question, where's the million show?
I said the million is in the bank.
It doesn't have to show up somewhere in the budget?
No.
What do you mean, no?
Well, it shows in the budget. I just said to you, on page 5, you see $486,500. If you add the $700,000 to that, you come up with $1,001,000. To date, we collected, which we certified with the division, that we collected in excess of $1 million. Therefore, they allowed us to anticipate the 486 and the 700,000, which in total is over $1 million.
I'll go on, but I still don't understand why it only shows from 550,000. The other one is, on the next, right underneath that, is the, well, I guess that's the total of the two, the $1,285,000 going to
That's the total.
$1,735,000.
Right,
That's the total of those two items.
By category.
Right. Now the, you got another line item here on the total revenues are increasing, is it correct, 764,000?
We went from 11,587,350.59 to 12,051,735.59. So they're increasing by 150, 450, 464, 385 is what the revenue is.
All right, but then, that's an increase of 464,000.
Right.
But then on the bottom, line 7, it says total general revenues. And if all these revenues increase, why does it show a decrease of $764,000?
Because we decreased the amount to be raised by taxes. If you look at the next page, you'll see there's a decrease in the taxes. From $48,669 to $47,440.
So overall, there's a decrease in total revenues.
Overall, it's an increase in revenues other than taxes, and then a decrease in taxes.
Of 764,000, 915. Now I'm going on their appropriations now. The office of manager salaries and wages were cut $50,000. What wages were cut there? The salary.
That was your salary, right?
Yes.
We cut the manager's salary.
By $50,000?
That was in the budget, yes.
You cut his.
Especially the budget provided for the full salary, but he doesn't get the full salary, so we took out the part of the salary that he does not get. So we cut the budget by $50,000.
All right, did you, for 2014, that salary cut, what did he receive for 2014?
In 2014, he didn't receive the full salary either. But when we did the 15 budget, we appropriated the same that we did in 14. But realizing now that we're not going to spend that money, we cut it this time.
Okay. Well, see, those are the kind of things where we say you can cut if somebody looks at the budget carefully. And this is one of the many examples there.
That's why we cut it.
Yeah, but it should have been done before. The assessor's office was cut 15,000. What was cut there under other expenses?
Should be professional services, I believe.
Yeah, under professional services,
Professional services.
we cut the budget by 15,000. We looked at year-to-date expenditure. Rich, you're gonna find that pretty much consistent throughout this whole amendment. We reviewed what we appropriated in the introduced budget. We looked at what we spent year-to-date before we did this amendment, and where we felt that we could cut some funds, we did. So that's what we did on this particular one, and like I said, the majority of the questions are gonna be that's pretty much the answer for most of these reductions.
Well, the next one is a big one. The $150,000 was cut from the employee group health. And can you give me a reason for that big cut, which we appreciate?
Year-to-date expenses incurred on the health insurance versus what we had budgeted for.
All right. But the next one is the law department. That's very minor. I think you could have found more there. On the salaries and wages, you only cut that 10,000 from 280 maxed out. I think you probably could have cut more from that. And the municipal court, I'm not familiar with that enough to discuss it. But what I've seen with the law department, I think we should cut that budget a little more. On the planning board, why is such a, if you compare to the zoning board, why is such a big other expense, 32,000, although you're cutting it down to 27,000, but the zoning board, other expenses are only about 6,000. Why does the planning board need this large amount under other expenses?
Formality and that stuff, plans and stuff.
I'd have to check with that department. We'll get back to you on that.
And the reason I ask that, because the majority of the thing there, when experts are hired, the applicants have to put up escrow accounts. So it's really their money, not the taxpayers' money. So I'd like an answer on why that, even 27,000, which is about 4 times what the zoning board, and the zoning board, I think, has more detailed cases. So I'd like an answer to that question. Now we got another big one. Under the Department of Public Works, the garbage disposal contract was cut by $150,000. We cut that line item. How did that come about?
So that was based on the contract that we had and what we spent last year, like I said, and we saw that we had excess funding there, because when you do the budget, we don't know what the tipping fee is going to be coming in at. So it appears that the tipping fees weren't as exorbitant as we thought they were going to be, so we're able to cut that budget by $150,000.
And along with that line item, I just suggested that the last budget meeting, we talked about Essex Park, when I asked about the money we have to pay towards their removal. I had asked a question, you were going to get the answers for me. I asked if they and other big complexes are recycling. And if they're not recycling, we could reduce this garbage contract even further if we reduce those guys. And I give you a perfect example. Last Tuesday I made a mistake. I go close my laundry, I go home, and I put out the recycling by mistake instead of the garbage. Guess what? A whole pail of recyclables, the garbage.
Talk to me about that later. Let's go on to this.
Well, this is it. Department of Recreation, which is, you cut, I believe, 20,000 from that, which is the one thing I have never agreed with. That is such a small part of our budget. I don't think you should take away that little thing that we're giving our children, the free recreation program we can provide. So that I have no problem with. I dare wouldn't even let you cut $20,000. And the construction code official. I don't like to use the analogy of other towns, but you've got the construction department, almost $1 million in that budget. Can we dig a little further and see where we can save in that department? That's an option, and it's gone up like crazy, and so I would recommend that we have to do something with that department. It's getting out of hand. It's bigger than most other similar department towns of similar size that we have. All right, and one other thing, what is, since the reassessment and the changes in the assessed valuations and all that, what does one tax point, how many dollars does that represent today?
$268,741 is the penny.
268,
268,741 is a penny.
741. Thank you. Thank you for the cuts, and I think if we sharpen the knife, we can go a little further too.
Can I get a motion to close public hearing?
No comment.
Yes, miss. Now, this is strictly on the amendments.
Yes. So based on some of the prior,
I need your name and
I'm
address
sorry.
for the,
Linda
and you're
Brown,
gonna have to
19 May
speak
Court.
up, because I can't hear you up here.
you can't hear me?
No, I can't.
Now you can hear me? Okay. Can I also ask the two gentlemen here, the gentleman that was responding to questions to speak up, because I couldn't hear him before either, because he's facing in that direction. So, Linda Brown, 19 May Court, Red Bank, New Jersey, and a couple questions regarding, well, some of my questions have been answered because of the questions that were asked previously, and it had to do with the general changes to the budget. There were a lot of small reductions, a lot of like salary reductions and such, and my understanding, based on what you said earlier, is that those adjustments to most of the line items represent improved estimates rather than, you know, if it's a reduction in salary, doesn't represent a retirement or a staffing reduction. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. This gentleman, are you the township CFO?
He's our auditor.
Is our auditor? Can I ask you to prepare the budget?
The township manager, governing body, and myself.
And the auditor? CFO did not prepare the budget?
CFO also prepared that. It said the manager, the CFO, the governing body, and myself.
Okay. Is the CFO here today?
Miss, are you gonna talk about the amendments or question who's doing the
I'm
budget?
curious why the CFO is not answering the question.
CFO is here.
Okay. So what is the overall tax increase now with the changes and the reductions? The overall tax increase to the municipal tax levy, total municipal tax levy?
You talking about the rate? You talking about the levy?
I'm talking about the total levy, which is in the 47 million range, that
Right.
number.
The total levy is 47,446.23.
And that represents,
That represents a $1,000,005 increase over last year, and it implies a $134.44 increase on the average home. It sets at $238,100.
okay, what's the total percentage increase in that levy? That 47,446?
About 5%,
What is it?
a little over 5%.
Okay. So if I'm just looking at some of the numbers that were adjusted from the budget, I'm looking at the, okay, so there were a few adjustments here. One was to the total general appropriations for the year, and the other was to the total budget, the total
allowed appropriations, and then also to the total municipal tax levy. And just looking at page 3D of the budget, there was a reduction of $779,300 to the total general appropriations for municipal purposes within tax, okay? That's the number that determines how much, one of the numbers that determines how much will be left on the table in the cap bank. So that puts another $779,300 in the cap bank for year 2015, for a total of almost $2 million in the cap bank. So that's money that's sort of on the table. It doesn't ever have to be used. I get that, but it's on the table. Those are monies. That's an amount by which you can actually increase.
What does that have to do with the amendment to the budget?
I'm just mentioning it's on the table.
Okay, you mentioned
we're
it.
voting for this year, but it's still
The
out
amendments,
there.
miss. The amendments.
Okay, that is part of this. It's right here. It's the numbers we're talking about. Okay. Okay. I think that's it. Hold on, let me see my sheets. Fortunately, a lot of good questions were asked previously, so I don't need to ask. Let me see. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vic Mafucci, just a quick question. What would the tax rate be? If we're talking dollars, what's the rate?
The tax rate would be, the municipal tax rate would be 1.765.
Okay, thank you. Make a motion, close public hearing?
Second.
Clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel? Mayor Kimball?
Yes. If there are no further applications on the floor, I will entertain a motion to close the hearing. We have that. And Mayor, I move that the hearing on the budget amendments be closed.
Second.
And we vote on the motion, right, Councilman?
Yes. Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Robel? Mayor Kimball?
Yes. You forgot John.
Oh,
Let's get John
I
on record.
apologize.
Yes.
Okay, the resolution is adopted.
Read section 2 of the budget, adoption. Have Kelly read section 2, adoption of the budget.
Section 2, upon adoption for year 2015, be it resolved by the governing body of the Township of Belleville, County of Essex, that the budget hereinbefore set forth is hereby adopted and shall constitute an appropriation for the purposes stated in the sums therein set forth as appropriations and authorizations of the amount of A, $46,517,248.14 for municipal purposes, and B, $923,374.86 for the minimum library tax.
I offer the foregoing resolution and move its adoption.
Second.
Clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel? Mayor Kimball?
Yes,
Res-
the resolution is adopted. Okay, manager report, reported manager.
Streetscape lighting is about 95% completed. We counted about 11 lampposts that still have not yet been installed. That work should be completed between now and the end of the month. I was down on Ralph Street today, paving and curbing is also being completed as we speak. Friendly House graffiti has been removed. Paving of that project has been completed as well. Just anticipating some last minute changes for CO on that building. And then we can have a little tank ceremony or open that building. That's all I have to report.
Okay,
No.
John?
Kevin, you and I have been talking about certain things, New Street and Portland Street, so, we'll continue our dialogue. I don't think we really bring that out today.
Thank you.
Kim, I just want to commend you and your committee for the, just the party, you guys did it very well. No hitches, everybody enjoyed it, and it seemed like a family event there that night.
And Rob did a great job with it.
Kevin, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Communications?
A letter of resignation received from George Brusnes, member of the Recreation and Cultural Affairs Advisory Board.
Make a motion to accept it?
Second.
Clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel? Mayor Kimball?
Yes.
B, letter received from Cosarelli LLP representing Naninas in the Park, asking the township to consider vacating that portion of Mill Street immediately adjacent to Naninas in the Park. C, request received from the Belleville Wrestling Parents and Friends Association for permission to hold tag days on October 3rd and 24th and November 14th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at local businesses.
Make a motion to approve it?
Second.
Clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel? Mayor Kimball?
Yes.
D, resolution received from the Township of Belleville's Planning Board entitled Resolution of the Planning Board of the Township of Belleville in the County of Essex, State of New Jersey, approving an application for the development of the former Essex County Geriatric Hospital located at 520 Belleville Avenue, Belleville, New Jersey, Block 2501, Lot 1.01, that has been designated as an area in need of redevelopment and revitalization.
Who is this for introduction?
Ordinance number 1 for introduction, an ordinance to amend the revised general ordinances of the Township of Belleville entitled Municipal Parking Lots.
Make a motion to move for introduction?
Second.
Clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel? Mayor Kimball?
Yes.
All move to consent agenda? What time is it? All right.
Public participation?
Make a motion, open public participation?
Second. Clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel? Mayor Kimball?
Yes.
Jeff Mattingly, 56 Walnut. In what way will this ordinance revise the municipal parking lot status as it presently exists?
I can't talk until the hearing is says, until it's up for,
I'm sorry, Councilman, I can't hear
Can't hear
you.
you.
You can't talk on it until it's up for public hearing.
Oh.
It was just introduced.
Okay. So this is just general public?
This is the first
Participation.
time.
Would you tell, excuse me, Jeff, would you tell Steve to stand on the line?
Councilman, Deputy Mayor, we need you to stay on the line for another few minutes. Thank you. So this is
I'm
general
sorry.
public participation?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, I can't ask that now.
No, when it comes to
You
the
have to
hearing.
wait till that comes up. All right. I'd like to address Mill Street. I see here the reference from Cosarelli LLC on vacating the portion of Mill Street. I'd like to know, because I've done a little bit of research, looked at the tax maps, and I've found that that is the property they generally park on now, that as you enter their property, you're actually entering on Old Mill Street, correct?
That's correct.
Do we receive any rent for that now, for renting that property?
Mayor, if I may, Mr. Mattingly, pardon me. That's a matter we discussed in private before the last meeting. As a subject of negotiations, I would advise the governing body not to engage in any discussions until that comes off the table. That's on the table now. Is that the ordinance you're talking about, Jeff?
Well, I'm referring to the communications that have been brought suggesting that we vacate a portion of property that is a street that we own, right? Belleville owns.
If I may suggest, Mayor, the communication speaks for itself. We did, just so that you know, Mr. Mattingly, the governing body did receive that letter right about at the same time that we had the last meeting, and it was addressed in private.
But we have an ordinance on the table. That's what we're...
I think you can draw a conclusion from what I just said, that that's why the ordinance remains on the table.
Right, and no, I've got that, but I'm talking about prior history. I'm not talking about what vacating it right this moment. I'd like to know whether or not we received rent for it prior to this consideration, historically in our budgets.
That street is it's owned by the Township of Belleville. That's our street.
Okay, and they use it, right?
It is a
Do you use
method
your
of
street?
ingress and egress
Yes,
to
I
the
do.
business.
But I don't
It's
park
a
it up
method of
solid. I
ingress
have
and egress
to
to
pay.
the business. And that's a point well taken. just like any other street, is a point of ingress and egress to businesses throughout the township. May I assure you, the governing
No,
body
it's not-
has a careful eye on
As far as
that.
I know, it's not used for the budget. No rent for that.
I'm sorry?
We have no rent for that street, for the use of that street.
Okay, we get no rent historically.
Just like we don't give you rent for you using your street.
Yeah, you do. You get property taxes.
Well, they do too.
Yes, yes, you do. All right, I'll revisit that at the time. I see that you guys did a great job of tightening up the budget compared to what you've used in the past, and I can see now that it's a responsible budget, but there's zero to little elasticity left in it. And if things, the status quo, in terms of our predicted expenditures were to change, it's all going to come back directly to the taxpayer. I think that we have a lot of exposure going forward with little cushion, which I see you've removed, rightfully so, but no cushion. There's an item in the budget that is 1.7 million, I believe, inside in accumulated overtime and sick days. And this is a necessity to meet when people retire or have to use excessive amounts of time, and you have to pay other people to fill shifts and such, and so on. It looks like there is $113,000 presently funding that $1.7 million liability. And I know that when people make large salaries and they consider retiring, that there can be some very large packages that fall on this liability. And it sounds as though we kind of have our pants down on this. And other issues that, like I'm saying, like projecting for road repairs, water, broken mains, it just goes on and on. I mean, water is constantly bubbling up in Belleville and the towns around us. And that we don't have anything put away to meet these needs that are real and immediate. They're not, this isn't in your future so distant, you're here and now. And I am in agreement with Mr. Frantantoni that departments have to be reduced and money has to be saved. And excessively large salaries have to be rolled back as retirements allow. And I really like to see people go out on attrition. I don't like to see people handed pink slips. And I would suggest that departments that are the suggestion that the budget for the building codes is $1 million, and their revenue that was anticipated that was brought in $1 million. $66,000 for parking meters, but it isn't just one part-time personnel, it's a full-time and a part-time, which salaries, pensions, and benefits suggest is better ways to deal with these things and reduce personnel as they retire, where people are certainly poised to do that regularly, annually. So I think at this point we have to be a lot more accountable to the taxpayer and putting money away for these definite and real expenditures that are coming our way, and that other one-time fixes we're all fresh out of.
Jeff, you want to finish up, please?
Yeah, that is it, Mayor. Thank you for your time.
First of all, I'd like to again express my disappointment that this is the second day in 2 weeks that I had to lose time from work, come to these meetings that you hold in the middle of the day. Your councilman couldn't even get here. You got 3 councilmen that couldn't even make the meeting, and the citizens who are paying the tax bills can't come to 12:30 in the afternoon meetings and 3:30 in the afternoon meetings. So you got to stop this. And I don't know if it's illegal, but it certainly. And then it was just advertised in Monday's paper. That's number one. Number two, I object, I take exception to Mr. Kennedy's remarks now and the town attorney. Ordinance for introduction. He didn't ask to speak on, he asked what's the slot. It's on the agenda. Now, we're not speaking anything, but we're asking you to read it so we know what you just introduced, because it's only introduced by title. Can you read it, Councilman Kennedy?
You know, they're out on the wall too, Mr. Frantantoni. You know, if you look at all the stuff on the wall out there before you come in.
Yeah, you know, I have all these stuff from the town, but half of them are stapled over other ones. Go look at them.
Vinnie.
Well, this is your job.
Put it on the website.
Which one are you looking for?
The one about the park. Resolution one.
Not a resolution, it's an ordinance for introduction.
An ordinance to amend the revised general ordinances of the Township of Belleville entitled Municipal Parking Lots. Be it ordained by the Municipal Council of the Township of Belleville, New Jersey, Section 1, Chapter 3-31-2, establishment of the following entitled ordinance is hereby amended as follows. Parking area number. Description: metered and permitted parking north side of the public safety building is prohibited for township employees to park in this lot, except for the two first parking spaces located at the northeast corner of the parking area. The first parking space is restricted and reserved parking for the tax assessor, and the second parking spot shall be restricted and reserved for the municipal clerk.
It sounds like it's a good thing for the taxpayers, so I don't know why you don't want to say it. But we'll discuss that at the public hearing. Number two, I also take exception to the town attorney's statement on the vacation of Mill Street. Number one, it shouldn't even be on the table, it should be removed, because I brought to the attention of the town manager, the ad was improperly advertised. You got the wrong lot and block number when you advertise this vacation of this Mill Street. So rather than put it on a table, it should have just been eliminated. If you want to do anything, you're going to have to start all over again and introduce it and advertise it properly, because the advertisement is flawed. And number two, I totally object to giving it away. It's over a half an acre. It's 25,000 square feet. Forget about vacating. Let's talk green stuff for it. And I don't mean grass. We had a similar situation years ago. A developer wanted to build townhouses on, or condominiums on Union Avenue. And there was Wesley Flake. There was the town council, the commission at the time was going to vacate that. It was approximately 22,000 feet. It was a street. Well, one of our retired secretaries found it illegally advertised in the North Jersey Herald News when it should have been an Essex County paper. We brought it to the attention of Mr. Marotti and that commission, and we fought them, and they had it revisited, and for that little piece of land, we wound up getting, I think, $6,800 or $8,600. So we don't give away our land for free.
Well, I think that's why it was tabled, so we could get it appraised to see what the value of it is.
Exactly.
And get money for it. But like I said, it shouldn't have even been tabled, because it should have been killed because it was improperly advertised.
As long as it don't come off the table, we consider it.
Technicality. But certainly, we want, and again, when my little 38 by 100 lot is assessed as, I think, $120,000, I want to see what you're going to assess that 25,000 square feet property for. Because I'm paying taxes on that excessive amount of tax assessment on that. In regards to the sick time, excused absences or unexcused absences and all that, the $1.7 million. Now, you passed two bond ordinances a few years ago, one for $350,000 and one for $335,000. One was to pay the unused sick thing for only 11 employees, and I believe the other was for only 7 employees. Now, that was, I think, 3 years ago or more. Since then, I know that people are retired, but we don't see it on the agendas anymore. Now, just to think, did these people have no accumulated sick time? And if they did, where are people being paid from?
Well, what we decided is when somebody retires, we're not going to hire in that position until their sick time is paid out.
Okay, so what we're doing, if a guy's got the, let's say, 30 days, he's going to have a month vacation. We're going to pay him for not working, right? Until it use it up.
If we owe him that money, we have to pay it. But in order to obtain that money, we're not going to hire somebody to replace him until that money is carried out, is paid out.
Are we going to pay him in cash?
No, we're going to give him a check from the town.
Again, the check will be cash. But is he, all right, at the same time, is he also employed?
No.
Okay, well then that's what I said. So we're gonna pay these guys, we're gonna leave them on the payroll not working while we,
No. No, we're gonna give him the lump sum when he finishes. We're not gonna replace that position.
right?
So that money is can we make up that money that we paid out?
So where are you getting the lump sum from? Which
From his salary.
would be his salary,
Yeah,
all right?
yeah.
So you're putting money in the budget
No, we're not putting it.
for a position that you're not paying. Well, wait a minute. If he's still working, he's entitled, if he works, let's say a week, let's so we go simple. He's entitled to a week. If he's working that week, he deserves to be paid for the week, correct?
If he's working?
Yes.
Of course.
Okay, so if he's also owed a week unused sick time, how does he get paid from that?
Because it's a lump sum, we have to pay for the sick time
From where?
from his contract.
Well, where do you get
From the budget.
Where do you get the big week
Oh,
pay?
okay, then maybe we should pay him for leaving and then hire in his place, that would be double.
No, Mr. Mayor, first of all, I got a solution that I proposed
Yeah, I know.
25 years ago,
Mr.
right?
Quintana, can you finish
Simple.
up though?
Well, you're not answering me.
I
If the
gave you the
man
best
get-
answer I could.
agree. If a guy works,
I gave you the best thing I could.
he should get paid.
I know what your answer is, lay off.
No, that's
That's
not
always your
that's
answer
not
to
my
some questions.
proposal. My
Lay off.
proposal was
Terminate.
thought out and sensible.
Thank you.
When I'm asking you a question, you're not answering me.
I'm
And I
answering the best I
said,
could.
he works a week, I'm glad to give him that week's pay.
Yes.
But if he's owed a week sick time,
We have to, it's contractual.
again, but where you getting the money? Then the only way you could pay him for that sick time would be for him not to work a week and just give him a week's
Not
pay.
him, the future employer that we would have hired. That's where we're saving the
So
money.
you're shorting him.
No.
Exactly, you're not fulfilling the position with a new hire. It's commonplace throughout the state today to pay through the preserving of the payroll on that individual, not putting a new person in until the other person is paid out all the vacation and sick time.
I'm well aware of it. I get the record, the North Jersey newspaper. Almost every week, another town is out, that a police chief just now, he's off the payroll, because he gets 200 and some odd thousand, and he's off the payroll, but going to be paid that $250,000. So this is the same thing you're doing here. You got a guy who's not going to be working, you're going to pay him. You're not going to hire a new guy.
It's contractual that we pay it. We have to pay it.
I know that. The problem, then you have to agree that what I'm saying is right. My problem
Well, I
here.
don't agree with what you're saying is right.
Well, my problem here is that unless somebody like me gets up and asks, the public isn't aware of this money being paid out. See, there used to be a time, and I'll go back to Councilman Ravel's still on the payroll, his father was one of them, it was on the agenda that he was, if I remember the time, he was entitled to 16,000 unused
Oh,
sick time.
you want that on our...
Yes. So it used to be on the agenda, and the public knew about this.
Okay, I see what you're
And now, when you didn't have the money, you had to pass those 2 bond ordinances I'm talking about, and then we were acknowledged about this. But all these employees have since then, we don't know what's happening. But now you gave the answer, what you're doing. And if you check, that's the way it's going. And the last thing is, at the last meeting, you put an RFQ for outside legal services. I asked for what reason, the town attorney said there's no reason. The next day I went and got the ordinance. You're requesting proposals for outside legal services and all his experience and reputation in the field for the position sought. Knowledge of the area of expertise for the position sought. Yet nowhere in here does it say what type of attorney you want. Do you want a labor guy? Do you want a municipal land use attorney? So why would you even put, when we have an excellent town attorney here, why are we advertising for outside services for no specific reason, no specific case, and no specific qualification?
Well,
I know you're an excellent attorney.
You know, sometimes I am.
I certainly appreciate the compliment.
Happy back in, so watch out.
It's, You know, sometimes you do get them, they're few and far between, but I do appreciate it. It might have something to do with my budget only going up $1,200 over the year, I don't know. But I try to keep them broad so that the governing body will have an opportunity, as certain things arise, to select different firms. So we try to cost control. You know, I know you monitor this pretty carefully. We try to cost control things that are in conflict with the office, with the township, or attorneys that have expertise that, quite frankly, is far beyond mine in certain areas of the law. So that's my modest answer.
If the time arrives that we need a special attorney and our good attorney can't handle it at that time for the specific reason you need the attorney, and there's no rush, because you look at courts, judge will delay it all the time. You go to courts, oh, we don't have an attorney. Good, I'll give you 30 days. So there's no emergent matters in finding these outside attorneys. But this is a very, I don't know why this went out.
Thank you.
But it's wrong. Thank you.
Motion closed. Dismiss.
Linda Bound, 19 Main Court, Red Bank. Few comments. Can you hear me okay?
No, I can't, I'm going to be honest with you. Can you come around here? I can't hear you back there.
You can't hear me?
Now I can.
Okay, I'll try and project. At the beginning of the meeting, I wanted to speak to you about a few things, but you said to speak to you now. One thing had to do with the use of microphones, and I saw that you attempted to use them but had some trouble, so too much feedback. So hopefully you can get a technician to look at that, and maybe get them working for future meetings. So,
I think we corrected the problem.
are they working?
As far as I know, you are.
Okay. So it's still hard to hear some of you. Okay. Then if you could, I guess, move them closer to you when you're speaking, especially Councilman Kennedy. It's very hard to hear you when you're speaking.
It's hard to hear me? You doubt that very much.
Sometimes. The other issue has to do with when it's a public hearing or the public comment period. Usually, you know, there's a quick motion to close often before there's a question from the chair, Mr. Mayor, or the chair, as to whether or not any persons, any additional persons who would like to speak. And what I would like to see is actually that question posed before there's a quick motion to close in a second, because there may be people who do wish
If
to
somebody
speak.
raises their hand, we acknowledge them.
Okay.
And we
I
wouldn't
noticed that
acknowledge
there's
you.
some towns that actually don't, so I do appreciate that, but it would still be nice if the question was posed. Often people will feel intimidated once you start a motion to close and they won't say anything, and they'll be denied their right to comment when by law they have that right. So if you would please ask first.
We never deny a person the right to speak.
Okay. Well, I've made my statements on that, so.
I
have a
know you're
question.
new here, but anybody that
No,
wants to
I'm
speak,
not,
we
I've already acknowledged that I did notice that when you proceeded with the motion and I stood up, you did allow me to speak, okay. Question about the reorg meeting on June 29th. What time was that meeting?
To reorg?
Yes.
12 o'clock.
Was that noon? And what time was the regular meeting that day?
That was it. That was the regular meeting, that was all.
Wasn't there a meeting that evening?
Oh, no. The rework meeting was 12, and there's a regular meeting that takes place the same time.
The same day or the same time?
Same time, same day.
Well, they're after.
Okay. Was that meeting noticed? The
Of
regular
course it
meeting?
was.
All right. But I haven't seen any notice for that, moving it up to that time. Okay. Next question has to do with, at the last meeting, there were a couple of ordinances, and I know those are, the ordinances were for water infrastructure, sewer infrastructure, and I know that the hearing for that is coming up in October. But at the last meeting, I made a comment about funding through the New Jersey Environmental Infrastructure Trust. It's because of very favorable funding at half market or less. Often less than that, which is really the best way to go for water infrastructure projects. Towns save a lot of money by going through that program. There is a process whereby you have to apply. There's a letter of intent a few months later. About 6 months later, an application is due. The letter of intent for the upcoming year, which is the 2017 program year for the NJEIT programs, the letter of intent is due, I think, the first Friday in October, which is October 2nd, according to what I've seen. And I was told that it was October, but I'm thinking it's October 2nd. So that's coming up pretty quick. That's about a week. Just want to let you know, I was told you can apply online. It's a fairly simple process. The full application is due in March. And the reason I brought it up at the last meeting is because anytime you're going to issue debt for water infrastructure projects, it's in order to retain your eligibility for NJEIT funding, you have to coordinate with the DEP. All right, if it's an emergency situation, the DEP has to announce that it's make the emergency determination. You must coordinate with them and follow whatever guidelines they request in order to retain your eligibility for that program. So that's really important because millions, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, can be saved by going through that program for funding. I just wanted to point that out to you. One other comment. Okay, so one other comment has to do with properly noticing meetings. I know you have something that's posted here. If people want to come see it, like once recently I did see something in the newspaper, but for meetings back in June and July, I don't think there was much in the news, anything in the newspapers, frankly, regarding those meetings. There were hearings that were announced, where the hearing date would be listed, but I didn't see any ads in the Star-Ledger or the Belleville Times, which do both participate in online public notices for those meeting changes or meeting dates and times. So my question to you is, what is the process? I'd like to get some more information about the process where these ads, notices are being submitted to newspapers. So what is that process?
So can you answer that?
Sent to the newspapers via fax.
I'm sorry?
They're sent to the newspapers via fax.
By fax. And according to the news...
Finish up, your 5 minutes is up.
Can we just finish this question? What the payment is required prior to publication according to the newspapers? All right, so they're not ever paid? Or are you paid after?
It's not required prior to.
When are they paid?
Right after. Okay, well, I did call them and they said payment is required for publication. So if they're receiving it after, maybe that explains why the notices aren't getting published.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I go over the bills, they're getting published.
Anybody
sorry?
I go over the bills, they're getting published.
Anybody else wish to speak?
Make a motion to close public hearing.
Clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel? Mayor Kimball?
Make a motion to move the consent agenda.
Second.
Any deletions?
No.
John? Clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel? Mayor Kimball?
Yes. New business?
Nope.
John? Motion adjourned?
Make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion adjourned.
Rich, fabulous job, tremendous job.
Joe, thank you.
Really something, it was amazing.
Thank you.